The Phrygian mode has a distinctive, intense and dark minor sound. Because of this, Phrygian is often used in metal music to provide an evil or exotic edge. Listen to how it sounds here with the E Phrygian scale, which has the notes E, F, G, A, B, C and D. Compare this to the E natural minor / Aeolian mode. You can see that there's one note of difference, F sharp. This is the second scale degree of the natural minor scale. In the Phrygian mode, this is a flat or minor second scale degree. This note will be vital in defining the Phrygian chord progressions I show you later on. It is what provides a lot of the distinctive Phrygian mode sound. You can use the notes from a scale or mode to create a series of chords. These chords are what make up a key in songwriting. The most basic chords are constructed with 3 notes and are called triads. They will be either major, minor, diminished or augmented. Let's use the E Phrygian scale I showed you earlier to construct some chords. To create the first chord, take the first note, which is E here, and then skip a note, which takes you to G, and then skip a note from G, which gets you to B. These 3 notes will create a triad. In this case, E, G and B create E minor. This is the 1 chord. Then you move on to the next note and start again. In E Phrygian, the next note is F. If you skip a note from F, you have A. Skip a note from A and you get to C. F, A and C create a F major chord. This becomes your 2 chord. You then repeat the process for the remaining notes of the Phrygian mode to generate a set of 7 chords. Note how I have repeated the notes twice here to make constructing the chords easy to visualize. This gives you the following chords: 1 E minor, 2 F major, 3 G major, 4 A minor, 5 B diminished, 6 C major, and 7 D minor. These are the diatonic chords in the E Phrygian key. That is chords that are made purely with notes from the E Phrygian scale. E Phrygian is a good key for guitar players because it has lots of chords that can be played as simple open chords. It is also popular on the piano because you just use the white notes. You can see that each of the diatonic chords has a Roman numeral above it. Lowercase indicates minor chords and uppercase major chords. This helps you to understand chord progressions as the Roman numerals can apply to any Phrygian key and simply indicate the function of the chords. Let's start building some Phrygian mode chord progressions now and look at how you can write your own. Critical to creating Phrygian sounding chord progressions is to use chords that have the flat or minor second note in them. As you saw earlier, this is the only note that is separating Phrygian from Aeolian, so if you want to make clear what mode you are in, then keep coming back to chords with that defining note. The basic Phrygian triads that have the flat second note in them are 2, 5 and 7. Let's start with a 1, 2, 1, 7 progression. A progression like this will fully anchor you in the Phrygian mode. This is because it goes from the tonic chord to chords that contain the flat second note that I have discussed. It also mixes minor and major triads nicely. Want some more keys to try out along with Phrygian? 7 easy songwriting keys are available to make your chord progression writing a breeze. Don't waste any more time searching. Go to majorkeychords.com now and download your free guide today. Link is also in the description. This next progression introduces the 3 chord. The use of mainly major chords colours the sound of this progression, but you still have the 2 chord to keep things Phrygian. Note how the chords rise in number order. This is referred to as the escalator effect. This can also work in a descending direction from high numbers to low numbers. Doing this is a great way to build up to a new song section or high point. Just be aware that the more you do it, the less impact it has in a song. Here are a couple more common progressions that use ideas I've discussed so far to produce a Phrygian sound. Listen out for the 4 chord in the second half, introducing another minor chord to the sound palette. So far I've not used two chords in the examples, 5 and 6. The 6 chord is a major chord, which you are familiar with. The 5 chord is a diminished chord. Diminished chords have an unsettled tension that makes them less common in popular major key songs. Listen to both of these chords in action in the next example. Also note the use of inversions of the 1 chord here. You saw at the beginning of the video that each chord was constructed with 3 notes. Usually the lowest note in the chord is the root note, where the chord letter comes from. If you play one of the other notes as the lowest, then you create a chord inversion. Each triad has 2 possible inversions. The bass note is indicated with the letter after the slash. Inversions are useful for creating interesting bass lines with your chord progressions. I've started with a second inversion 1 chord to begin this progression. This puts the B note as the lowest. This creates a stepwise rising bass line in the first half, B, C, D, E. Listen out for the 6th chord and also the difference between the second inversion 1 chord and the standard 1 chord. In the second half of the progression, I start with the diminished 5 chord. Listen how it doesn't sound out of place, because it uses the same bass note as the second inversion 1 chord, but it clearly has an unsettled tension. The bass line in the final 4 bars goes B, A, G, F. This utilizes a first inversion 1 chord to create a descending feel. So far I've only used basic triads in the Phrygian progressions, but you are of course free to use different chord types in your Phrygian songs. You can experiment with this on any of the chords, but where it is particularly interesting is in introducing or emphasizing the flat second note from the mode. As you understand now, this will reinforce the Phrygian sound. There are many ways to do this, so what I discuss here won't be exhaustive. Let's start by taking the 3 chord and turning it into a dominant 7th. This adds the flat second note from the scale to the 3 chord major triad. Here it is at the end of a progression. See how it pulls you back to the 1 chord. Three of the chords in the previous progression have a flat second note, so there's no question that this is in Phrygian. But one way you can emphasize this even more is by using the first inversion of the 7 minor chord. This puts the flat second note in the bass of the 7 chord to make it stand out. In this example, it leads into the 2 chord. If you change the 6th chord into a sus4 chord, then it introduces the flat second to yet another chord. The use of the sus4 adds a completely different feel to this progression, which may not be associated with the Phrygian sound. I'll now put some of what you've learned into a full song example. The song will feature chord durations that aren't just 1 per bar. This will provide some more interest compared to the examples. It has an intro verse chorus break, verse chorus break, chorus outro structure. Sections are generally 4 or 8 bars to keep things simple, but you can experiment with different lengths in your own song. It starts in the intro with the 1 and 2 chords. These set up the Phrygian sound for the song and anchors the listener in the key. They also introduce the rhythmic setup that will run throughout the song. The first 2 chords are heard for 1.5 beats or a dotted quarter note. These offbeat changes bring some interesting syncopation to the progression. Then a brief 1 beat or quarter note chord is heard at the end of bar 1. This section ends with the 3 dominant 7th chord to draw us into the verse. The verses focus primarily on the minor chords. They start with a second inversion 4 chord. This shares a bass note with the 1 chord, E minor, which is heard in the next bar. This provides a pleasing beginning to the verse. They are also 1 bar each to settle things down after the intro. Then the 7 chord is heard, before the signature rhythm is brought back, this time using first inversion 4 chord and second inversion 1 chords. This means I get more mileage out of the 3 minor chords in the key, but it also provides a descending bass line for the verse, from E to D to C to B. The verse then repeats again, but the final 2 chords are changed. First is the diminished 5 chord. This brings some pleasing discordance to the song. But because it has the same bass note as the second inversion 1 chord from the 4th bar of the verse, it doesn't sound out of place. The final chord this time uses the 7 D minor. This provides a step up, leading towards the 1 chord, E minor, at the start of the chorus. Where the verse was minor focused, the chorus is major focused. It has a slightly different rhythmic feel, starting with the 1 chord for 3 beats, or a dotted half note. Then the 3 major chords are heard, to build a rising escalator to the first 2 bars. Then the chorus settles on the tense 5 chord for a bar, before stepping down to the 4 chord A minor. The final beat of the 4th bar of the chorus uses a first inversion 6 chord to step back to the bass note E of the 1 chord. This whole thing repeats twice. At the end of the chorus is a 4 bar break, which is heard before the verse comes back in. The break uses the rhythmic setup from the intro to continue this thread running through the song. The whole bar chords 2 and 3 dominant 7th remain the same. The difference is with the use of the 6 chord and the 6 sus4. This brings a different feel to the break to separate it from the rest of the song. The sections then repeat again until you get to the outro. The first 4 bars of the outro are the same as the break. The change comes in the final 4 bars. After hearing C and C sus4 again, the signature rhythm is used, but this time with the 1 chord and the first inversion of the 1 chord. This sets up a rising 1, 2, 3 section to finish the song on some expectation. The 2 chord alternates with the second inversion 2 to reinforce the rhythm before ending again on the 3 dominant 7 and then the 1 chord. Follow along and listen to the different techniques and ideas, and then have a go at writing your own Phrygian chord progressions. You've learned how to write a chord progression, but you need to be able to write the rest of a Phrygian song. Watch the playlist on screen now to master Phrygian mode songwriting.